Suffering and death just feel wrong. My comfort in my suffering is this: your promise preserves my life, says the psalmist. So look, why do we cry over the suffering of people and not over discarded rubbish? Of course, it sounds silly to even ask the question, doesn't it? But look, if we are not specifically made and cherished by a God, then in real terms, we're not worth anything more than anything else in the universe. We're all just made up of atoms in whatever way chance has determined. And we'll all decompose the same way in the ground. But look, the fact that what this means for suffering is so silly shows that our concern over suffering makes no sense if there is no God there. When people say that the existence of suffering proves there cannot be a loving God, look, we can gently point out that if there is no loving God, then we would not care about suffering in the first place. Of course, some do argue that we have learned what we call care through evolution as a way to look after one another so that the human race develops. But what that doesn't really explain is why we care about the suffering and the death of the elderly or the disabled who can't help our race anymore. It doesn't explain why suffering and death always feels sort of wrong to us. In fact, the logic of atheistic evolution implies that suffering and death for those who aren't strong or healthy is actually a good thing, because it's nature's way of freeing the rest of us from the burden of looking after them and ensuring there is more food and resource to go round for those who need it. But look, only the most cold-hearted person actually thinks that way. Well, people live inconsistently with that. Most recognise that this world is not what it should be and should ultimately be free from suffering and death. Isn't that why we so love the NHS? And so there's a real sense that those who don't even believe in heaven feel as if it should exist. Now look, our instincts aren't always reliable, but when we all share the same instinct, isn't it evidence of something real? Listen to C.S. Lewis, who became a Christian as a professor at Oxford University. He converted to Christ after realizing just this. He wrote, creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for those desires exists. A baby feels hunger, well, there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim, well, there is such a thing as water. And if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. Last time we saw that the belief that there is no God makes much more, the belief that there is a God makes much more sense of what we see in the universe than the belief that there isn't. Now we're seeing that it better fits what we instinctively know and feel inside too. As our opening verse says, our comfort in suffering is this, that it's not just the way things have come to be, it's an intrusion into this world. And as Christ makes clear, it is something he has promised to remedy.